यार भैया कर ले।
Let's go, folks. I can see people joining in. Sorry for being late today. I got a call. Very important call. And I couldn't have avoided it. I couldn't have told the VIP to talk to me after an hour. So sorry about that, folks. But we can begin. If you can hear me, let me know and we will begin. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. It's 8:17. We're very late, so let me just check myself. Avoided it. Couldn't have told the VIP. Okay, sounds okay. Good morning, Nishant. Says Mr. Rajakumar. Good morning, Mr. Kumar. I'm sorry for being late today. As I said, I got a call at a very weird hour and I couldn't have, changed it, unfortunately. It was, I couldn't have done anything about it, so sorry about that. I hope you can hear me properly. The VIP. Okay. The VIP. Okay. The VIP. Okay. Can you hear me? I can't check myself. Can you hear me? Yeah, now it's good. Now it's good, I think. Should we begin? Yeah, I think we should. Sorry for being late today, folks. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We are having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everything. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. But before we go, gotta follow tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail every day. And all we need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful. Let's do it again. Sublime. It's healing. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. Well, Mehli Mystery, Mr. Mehli Mystery, he has put in a very interesting rider on his appointment, on the appointment that he's letting in. So he has okayed Mr. Vinu Srinivasan's reappointment on the condition that trustees unanimously approve all renewals henceforth. So he says that ideally this problem shouldn't arise, but after Mr. Venu Srinivasan's appointment, I am supposed to get appointed. So I don't want my appointment to be vetoed, and all the next appointments that we decide they should be let in. So the Tata Trust is going through a very weird time. So Mr. Noel Tata, half brother of Mr. Ratan Tata, he's been in. Mr. Mehli Mistry is supposed to be in. Mr. Venu Srivasan is in, right? So, and it's an appointment for life, so it's not a tenured appointment. So this appointment is for life essentially. And also, what's happening with the whole situation is Mr. Vijay Singh's, you know, appointment. That was what was being opposed by Mr. Mehli Mistry. So all that is going on, right? It's very very complicated how this thing shapes up. He says, I do not approve. Okay, for the avoidance of doubt, should any trustee elect not to pass this resolution reappointing Venu Srinivasan or an identical unanimous resolution when the respective tenures expire, then in such a event, I do not approve my formal approval for the reappointment of Venu Srinivasan. I do not expect such an situation to arise. So this is a very contentious, interesting boardroom showdown that's happening, right? It's uh, it's just very very consequential for the entire country. So if you remember, a lot of people stepped in. Mr. Amit Shah and all, right? They stepped in. They have to step in for an empire of Tata's size and of Tata's impact and Tata's scale, right? The whole country moves. So this particular boardroom showdown is very important. We've discussed, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember why this showdown is happening. What is the reason of this particular showdown? Mysteries have been looking at getting the Tata Sons, the Tata Trust essentially uh, to go public because they have a lot of debt hanging on their heads, right? And with Tata going public, all that debt could be easily, let's say, refinanced. But without that debt, they are in a lot of trouble. Tata doesn't want to get listed, of course, the Sons, the trust, because listing is a lot of hassle and they want to be independent and so on and so forth. So that's the whole play. And this is a pretty interesting rider. Mr. Venu Srinivasan is, of course, the TCSIR, right? Sorry, TVSIR. So he's an exceptional person, by the way. Moving on, social media AI content may be labeled, says Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav. Mr. Vaishnav is talking about the importance of labeling of AI content on social networking. So it needs to be explicitly mentioned that some particular video is AI generated, so that or pictures or whatever, so that people can identify whatever is happening right now. The AI videos have become so good that it's almost impossible for people to recognize that they've come from AI, right? They're just extraordinarily realistic. So, speaking of social media, the average time spent on social media and content posted on social media has plateaued. So, it's the report says it's not you, it's the social media. A lot of people are not posting on social media and they become passive viewers of video content, right? So social media still takes a lot of time, but even that is plateauing. So social media, decades of growth, right? Social media revolution can be said to have begun in, let's say, 2004 with the advent of Facebook, or let's say 2001 or 2 with the advent of MySpace. But exponentially, the time spent on social media improved exponentially. It enhanced the control, the perception of social media in people's lives that grew. But now people have stopped posting. They've stopped being active contributors to content on social media and they've become passive consumers. And also, the time is sort of plateauing. This is very much in line with my pitch for Seneca. So if you remember, I told you, if you remember, so my open pitch for Seneca, the viral document, which led to this whole viral movement for distraction-free smartphone. In that, I had written that it took time for people to realize. So cocaine was invented in 1865, not doing analogy thinking, but just saying a fundamental. But only by 1915, was it outlawed, right? So it takes time for people to understand the problems of a particular technology, of a particular invention, and well after people have understood that it's a problem, the regulatory framework steps in way after. So right now people are realizing by themselves that social networking is a very very bad thing, right? For minds and hearts and so on and so forth. Much later you're going to see people forming in regulatory pressures on people. So that's what's happening. Social networking, a lot of time still goes on social networking. So if you look at India, 6.5 hours, average Indians spend about 6.5 hours on social networking. Most of that goes on social media, 2.5 hours, 1.5 to 2.5 hours. Then obviously YouTube, 1.5, 2.5 hours. So 4.5 hours, or about 5 hours of all the 6.5 hours that go on social media is not education. It's not uh, productivity. It's not work. It's basically discretionary spend of time which goes into social networking and other means of content consumption. So it's just zombie walking. It's dead men walking. Whatever time we spend on social phone and social media, it's just time wasted, right? 5 hours, about 5 hours every day. So that is sort of plateauing, but plateauing is not enough. So there are reasons why it's also plateauing. So, let's look at developed economies. Let's look at Germany. Let's look at Japan. Let's look at the richest places in the world. They have lesser time spent on the phone, right? If you go to India, if you go to poorer places like Nigeria, and all they have, like Nigeria has 7.5 hours of 7 hours, 7.5 hours of smartphone usage every day. Why? Because poor people, uneducated people, they are more prone to, and unemployed people, they are more prone to spend more time on phone, and discretionary spend of time on phone. So that becomes also a cultural uh, an income and employment thing. So if Japan is the least, so there's another reason why smartphone usage gets affected. Age is also a factor, of course. Japan's average age is very high, so there are a lot of old people, and Japan is also very social. uh, Old people live in communities and so on. So there's the social isolation of a smartphone is not uh, so ubiquitous, right? But when it comes to India, our young population, so they spend a lot of time on social media, and it's all coming to sort of a cliff where it's not growing beyond a point. So the graph is like this, right? So that's what's happening with social media. But whatever is happening with social media, you also got to realize uh, the aspect of AI and video generation. Also, if you can guess what is the reason why social networking is going down, uh, as per time spent, the reason is AI, right? Because people are starting to spend a lot of time with AI agents and AI conversational bots and so on and so forth. So social media, it takes time away from social media, right? So time spent on chat GPT or time spent on an AI bot is time stolen from Facebook and Meta, of course. So that's why you're seeing Facebook and Meta really aggressively pushing its AI. And if they've not been able to do anything, but they're really pushing aggressively because their cash cow gets hurt. And if their cash cow gets hurt, right, everything gets hurt. And this is the thesis of my current uh, startup, the startup that I'm building. What I'm building says that AI has a lot of opportunities of connecting people in a much better way than social networking. So uh, that's where my product is, and let's see what happens with the funding thing, right? And also traction. So we are getting a lot of good response, extremely nice response. So let's see what happens. Moving on. So at the time when all the platforms essentially are looking at conversations from man to machine, we are looking at conversations from of men to men, with machines as intermediaries. That's how we are different. So whatever conversations that people have with the bot on our platform, they lead to more connections with other humans, better connections with other humans. That's the thesis. That you could use all these bot conversations, the machine conversations, to forge deeper human connections. Right? I think it's a very, very nice, worthy goal, right? And let's see what happens with that. Moving on, folks. Uh, Chinese phone makers are dialing up India play despite thin margins. So Indian Indian contract manufacturers are doing very well as far as smartphone manufacturing play is considered. And even though Chinese manufacturers were the OGs, right? They had been left behind in the India fray because India and China relations were not that cool. But as India and China relations deepen and the stresses are taken away, Chinese makers are coming back in the fray. So Chinese manufacturing companies gain orders for Xiaomi, from Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, and so on and so forth. Right? So the EMS players are Dixon, Bhagwati, and then there is BYD, DBG, which is the Chinese player. Right? So they are gaining ground. Let's see what happens with their play. Of course, Chinese companies are very, very tight when it comes to manufacturing of phones, right? Uh, there has been some sort of protectionist angle given or taken by India in the midst of whole India-China conflict. Let's see how that angle plays out now that ties are getting better. However, the question to ask is, are ties really getting better? Despite Mr. Modi's conversation with President Xi, what happened with the uh, rare earth situation? Nothing really happened, right? It all just, uh, uh, it all is where it was. If it all is where it was, how does these situations change? So I'll give you a very interesting story how businesses are an outcome of political will and how things change beyond your control. That's what I keep talking about, right? I quote Mr. Woody Allen sir, right? The whole luck aspect. Uh, the man who said, "I'd rather be lucky than good," saw deeply into life. That quote. So, in 2020, before 2020, there was so okay, let's go back a little. 2016, 2017. Okay, there was a company called ShareChat. I don't know if you know about it, but ShareChat was a company. It never made money. Forget about making money. It always lost money. Lost money like never before, right? Lost money like no company can claim to lose money. It lost money. Let's say if it made $12 million in revenues, right? That's about 100 crores. It lost $400 million, something of that sort, if I'm not wrong. Something of that sort, hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So it was a cash guzzler on steroids. Never made money, never made sense either, right? But anyway, so this company was growing as a tier 2, tier 3 social network, okay? Thanks to a lot of capital. So they grew with the whole indie vernacular. There was a trend in VCs at that time that vernacular languages and so on and so forth. So this company was growing. Then came TikTok. Now TikTok just screwed this company upside down, left, right, in circles. Okay, so TikTok came. It's just not this company. Basically, it screwed everybody. It screwed Facebook, Instagram, everybody, right? So TikTok took every bit of the Indian social media landscape by a storm. Okay, now it was clear, and TikTok copied whatever these people did, and they didn't need to copy. They had a much more viral product, and they had a lot of muscle as well, right? So TikTok came to India and just became a cultural phenomenon. Cultural phenomenon. It targeted the lowest common denominator, the bottom of the barrel, right? And poor people from tier 2, tier 3, they started making TikToks, and it became, so you remember the story. You have been there. Then it came to a clear play where ShareChat would be just acqui-hired by TikTok. There was no other way that this story was getting played out. There was no option for ShareChat to survive, right? Because TikTok just took its ground, and not just its ground, it took everybody's ground. It took Instagram's ground, right? Instagram introduced Reels uh, as a copy of TikTok, and it brought reels into the center because of TikTok. So TikTok revolutionized the whole play that way. ShareChat created its own product, Moj, or it bought Moj, and nothing happened. But then suddenly 2020, Galwan War happened. You remember? India and China fought on the border. After that war, suddenly TikTok was banned in India. Okay, now what happened when TikTok got banned in India was that ShareChat's competition, so to speak, was eliminated thanks to political will. And there was just Instagram with its reels and ShareChat with its tier 2, tier 3 story. Bharat, social media for Bharat, it was called. And then suddenly it started getting billions of dollars, man. It raised $1 billion, I guess, from Google, from Twitter, from everybody. And it got valued at somewhere around $5 billion, right? When Facebook was valued at about $5 billion, something about 6 billion. Facebook India business. Now, Facebook India had WhatsApp, had Instagram, had Facebook, and had revenues of $2 billion. But because Facebook's overall business was running at a multiple of 3 at that time, right? Facebook India was basically valued at $6 billion, and ShareChat got valued at $5 billion despite losing $400 million at paltry revenues. Never made money, always lost money, uh, always never made business sense, had tier 2, tier 3 people, nobody whom you'd like to sell ads to. But the company survived, not just survived, but it started collecting cash from all over because India banned TikTok. What do you think about that story, folks? How does it feel? Is it nice? Did you like it? Right? Uh, do you still think businesses build their own destiny? Huh? Or is it the political will? Most business outcomes are the result of political will. And till now, TikTok has not arrived in India, and ShareChat is still working. So its core business model, ShareChat's core business model, never worked out. The social network never flew, despite it having raised like $2 billion in total. $2 billion is 16,000 crore rupees. Its core business never worked. So you know how ShareChat is really earning money right now? It's earning money through those live streams, if you know what I mean. The live streams. So people paying through live streams, and you just go to ShareChat and check out the kind of live streams that are happening on that platform, and you'll understand what I'm saying. So, political will, despite nothing working out in your favor, despite never having worked out in your favor. So whatever traction did these people through, it was just fugazi, right? It didn't make any sense, but it happened. So that's what's happening, folks. Very, very interesting. Mr. Abhishek Sharma writes, businesses are indeed outcomes of political will. Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And anybody who thinks, no, they don't have awareness of self, maybe, and of the world in general. Moving on, folks. Gold extends its losses, sinks below $4,080 after worst rout in years. So gold had fallen 6%, about 6%, biggest fall since 2013, right? And then gold has, it fell again 1%, and then it stabilized a little. So it basically, if I look at GLD price, it rose up by 0.1% today, right? And if in 5 days I'm looking at its net fall is about 3.56%, right? In a month, 9%, 8.9%. So gold has sort of found its bottom, and it's basically, so what's happening is that with the Fed rate cut, right, the formal fiat finance system is basically looking green for a while. So a lot of people, so there was something called, when it came to gold, there was this debasement theory that and gold rallied because of that, right? So a lot of people were looking at all the problems that existed in the whole financial play, US play, and so on and so forth. So people were getting over indexed on gold. But then when it rose so much, it sort of people started booking profits, and then it came to the news that Fed is going to cut rates. So a lot of economic activity gets spurred. People took some money out of gold, and then they're going to go anywhere. In the meanwhile, whatever happened was when gold fell 6% and then 1%, stabilized at 4%, something of that sort. Indian There are long lines in front of the Indian gold sellers, and that's exactly what we discussed, I guess, yesterday or day before. That as soon as Indian gold markets open, it's gonna be great news for these people, because a lot of people will now be entering gold in India who had not been able to do so because of price prohibitiveness. So price prohibitions. So we talked about this, and that's exactly what's happening, right? It's That's what's taking place. Very, very interesting. So now what's looking like, people are saying, when will the market crash? Because people are over indexed on gold, right? And a lot of people have asked me that, when will the markets crash? You wrote about that market crash, it seemed. And I was like, uh, the powers that be don't want the market crash, and they've turned the buck to, for some other time, as they can do. So these quarters earnings were okay. These quarters earnings were not bad, especially the big tech. And it comes to the next quarter, like January or something, right? When these people come out with their December quarter. Let's look at that quarter. If that quarter starts showing cracks, maybe then it'll crash. If that quarter also goes green, because a lot of capex is going in the data center play, right? 50 billion in India. US must be 10 times, right? So it is 10 times. So a lot of action is happening. So maybe they're kicking the can down the road and see what happens. Mr. Piyush Sethi says, how further do you see it falling? So again, so this is where it becomes a projection and a prediction. Uh, Gold, as I said in the beginning as well, the most you have to lose with gold is about 8 to 10%, right? So at net level, from the peak, gold fell 3.56%, okay, from the peak. So the most you have to lose when it comes to gold is about 8 to 10%, because there was an over indexing play, right? So even if it comes down, it comes down by 8 to 10%. So gold is not for making money. So this is what I've been continuously saying. It's not, it's not supposed to grow like a stock, a small cap or mid cap stock, right? But it's a hedge. So it falls, it'll show its colors, it'll show its glitters when the economy falls. And when does the economy fall? Nobody can point it out, right? All you need is just one match, and then the whole crash happens. But when that happens, you can't say. So that's the answer. The most you can lose with gold is, at the moment, some 8 to 10%, according to people. But yet again, Mr. Ray Dalio, Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, Mr. Peter Schiff, all of these people have proved to be sort of early, if not wrong. If they're wrong, they're wrong. If they're not wrong, they're early. Even Mr. Michael Burry sir, gave a sell call 2 years ago, right? Since those 2 years, market has grown like unbelievably. Anyway, so moving on. Salons, gyms say GST rejig hasn't cut them any slack. So the input tax credit play, the inverted duty structure, we've talked about this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember the inverted duty structure play. Inverted duty structure is basically when you are paying GST on your buys, right? But you're not being able to take GST from the market. So as GST came down on these services also, these people just raised the price, because they say that input tax credits were not happening. So a lot of their money was getting blocked with GST, and there was no way that they could have dealt with. This is what happened with the insurance players. individual insurance GST was cut down to zero. So they said that we are selling a lot. We are giving a lot of GST to these policy bazaars, to these agents, to these product creators, and so on and so forth. I mean the organizers. But we are not being able to take GST from people. That means there's an inverted duty. We are paying duty. Our money is getting stuck in GST. We're not being able to balance it here. It's a problem, right? But the government has said that you cannot raise the prices. But the government obviously doesn't have that much control on salons, gyms, etc. So these people have raised prices. That is the double-edged sword. That's why reforms are hard to implement. Would the government step in and direct these people to actually reduce prices and give the benefits to users? I doubt it. I doubt it. Right? Because it's a service play, right? Prices at salons up 10 to 20%. So essentially all the GST rebate they got, 18% to 5% GST got slashed. They basically made all that money for themselves. No, you know, no benefit for the consumer, essentially. But that's a service play, so I guess it's okay. Who knows? Do you think it's okay? Do you favor these guys' arguments that because of income tax credit, because of the inverted duty structure, they have to raise prices, or they did, or is it a cop out? What do you think it is? Moving on, folks. It's a big market, by the way. It says $11 billion in 2024. It's gonna be $22 billion in 2033. Gym and fitness, $2 billion right now, 2024. $4.5 billion in 2033. So a lot of money to be made here. So that's what's happening with the gym salon business. Inverted duty. Inverted duty. We've had long discussions on inverted duties and how they've played out in different industries. So we're not going to explain more of that. Moving on. Fertilizer firms eye Russian soils for urea security, staving off supply shocks. So basically, Indian firms are looking at establishing manufacturing units in Russia so that there can be predictable, supply of fertilizers in India. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. If Indian firms get to expand their base of operations to Russia, that's awesome. Indian fertilizer companies are preparing to establish a urea manufacturing facility in Russia, which has abundant reserves of ammonia, natural gas, and so on and so forth. Right? So that's what's happening. A lot. Mr. Abhishek Sharma has a comment. From their POV, it makes sense. As to tackle inverted duty structure from consumer POV, it doesn't. Of course. You're right, Mr. Sharma. You're talking about the gym and salon guys, of course. By the way, something similar also happened with the agriculture play. You remember? Anyway, moving on. A lot of political chit chat, folks. My God. So dumb. So dumb. By the way, Army finally gets its close quarter battle carbines. It's a 4.2 lakh carbines, 2,700 crore, order. Kalyani company, the Kalyani unit, it's gonna serve 60% of this order. 40% is gonna come from Adani play, right? So this is yet again a defense order. A lot of defense activities happening. If you look at INS Sahadri take parts in India-Japan exercise. So Indo-Japan, they're basically doing a lot of warm exercise drills and so on and so forth, warming up to the whole South China Sea trouble, right? It's Japan is really activating itself. It's also supplying a lot of radar equipment and so on and so forth for the Navy. So let's see what happens there. A lot of action needed in defense. I've been saying that for 150 days now, and it's working. It's working. So let's see what happens there. Moving on. There's a report coming out from Nestle and Reckitt. Nestle is the company. It's an FMCG player, of course. Maggi is Nestle product. It's amongst the world's top FMCG companies. Then there's Reckitt Benckiser. These are both European companies. So they've said that India is a bright spot for their market, right? Despite the GST troubles which Reckitt Benckiser had or and Nestle have had to endure, right? India remains a bright spot. China, not so much, but India definitely. So that's what's happening with Nestle. If you look at the numbers, uh, Nestle's India unit, which makes Maggi, Purina, report 10% year-on-year increase in domestic quarterly sales, which is said what is highest ever quarterly sales led by broad-based volume growth. So that's what's happening. Bright spots, of course. Indian consumer market is bright. Just a year ago, just a couple of years ago, Indian consumer market was dead as disco. Unilever, all these FMCG companies were in a limbo. They were not being able to sell, right? They were not being able to grow. Suddenly, everything has changed. Why did it change? Because of the GST rationalization. What was that? It was political will. Once again, all business outcomes are mostly the result of political will. Moving on, folks. Heavy rains have hit Heineken sales. Heineken's makes United Breweries, right? They're not selling as well, right? And they're not selling as well. They're talking about rains having played spoil sport for the alcoholic drinks. Do you think rains are the reason why alcoholic drinks are in a limbo? Similar report, by the way, they're saying that wines, the premiumized markets of wines and wine market in general is not being able to grow. Sula, Fratelli, these two are the Sula vineyards is the biggest. Fratelli is the second. They're not being able to grow because there's a lot of discounting and so on and so forth. And wine as a market is not growing, which is causing a lot of pain because people are looking at other alcoholic beverages. According to them, they're thinking about coming out with wine cans. So they're coming out with. We've discussed it. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency know why wine and alcoholic drinks are not clicking in that way, right? So we said this like 150 days ago. And when we talked about it first, a lot of people were surprised that what really alcohol is not clicking anymore with Gen Zs, with millennials, right? And then we thought about why alcohol is not clicking, and then people thought about like maybe people are getting health conscious. I'm like, come on, come on, come on, ma. you know, it's like it's not health conscious. People know these reasons, so we've talked about this very interestingly, and it's basically whatever we've discussed, deliberated. It's so nice to be so ahead of the curve when it comes to these things, right? That you're watching an industry and you have a particular thesis, and that thesis works out so well and in time that it gives you a lot of confidence in your ability to actually predict things. Speaking of predictions, folks, I did some study on Nelco, right? And Nelco doesn't have a listed peer when it came to when it comes to their core business. There's this service business, right? It's basically service operation, B2B. Yes, there are people like BEL is in defense, it also can do that, and so on and so forth. Huge is an unlisted entity, and Tata Communications and so on, but there's no listed peer for the Satcom B2B play, and Nelco is that player, and it has a lot of room to grow, So if you look at 300 crore revenue with no PAT, virtually nothing, it's not a lot of money, right? At that scale with Tata uh, as the patron, right? It's a Tata subsidiary. So I have come to the conclusion that while it might not be like an extraordinary multi-bagger, it will definitely not be a bad investment. That's what I've come to think, right? That's what I think. Let's see how it pans out. So what I've done is I've very small amount. I've just placed it just to track where it goes, right? It's not a very bullish, high conviction bet because I still don't know much about the management. So once I get to know that, then that conviction will get strengthened or it'll get reversed. But for now, I think the prospects are significantly green. Let's see how that plays out. So we've been talking a lot about Satcom, you know, Let's see how that pans out, folks. The guys, easy money. Do you want to look at easy money, folks? Grant Thornton published a report called Grant Thornton Automotive Deal Tracker, and look at the report. They say Indian auto deals reach $4.6 billion. That's it. That's the report. Of course, there must be other things, but $4.6 billion in Q3, and one of those deals was $3.8 billion. Tata Motors acquisition of Ivesco SPA. We talked about this. So they just counted the number of deals, and they put A plus B plus C. And here's the deal tracker. Congratulations, folks. How do you feel? Right? Should I launch Thinker's frequency deal tracker? You sum all the deals. Here's the deal tracker. Where's the money? Where's my money, Lebowski? Where's my money, shithead? That's the big Lebowski reference for the movie buffs. Moving on. India's $12 billion luxury goods market to grow 10% in 2025. Affluent buyers favor wellness, travel, experiences over products. So, are you surprised? Of course, you're not surprised. Luxury markets are sort of immune, or more or less, if not immune, they're very robust when it comes to economic downturns. Mr. Sumant Kumar says they could have saved a lot of money. Right? I mean, oh my God. Grant Thornton, by the way, used to be a client of ours when it came to Testament. So we worked a lot with Grant Thornton. We did a lot of market research. But now the market research could have been, just ask Nishant, right? Whatever you're doing, whatever market research you're doing, just save half the money. Just keep half of it for Nishant, and I'll tell you what it is, right? Viewers of Thinker's frequency, if not Nishant. So the $12 billion luxury goods market, it's growing, right? $12 billion, expected to achieve a compound annual growth rate of 74%, highlighting its increased things. It's very, very consequential, logical, whatever is happening in the Indian luxury play, because a lot of wealth that India is generating is still pretty divided, right? So the problem that India is facing, there were two problems, of course. One was domestic consumption, one was private capex, right? And those were the problems which basically spearhead everything, right? If the market grows, the country grows, and everything. The numbers, macro numbers improve. But there's, of course, a problem when it comes to the bottom of the pyramid. Small cars not selling, and so on and so forth, right? So there's still a lot of income. Whatever development is happening, it's restricted to a few segments, right? Like you are seeing ultra premium luxury real estate really clicking it. But sub premium, or let's say affordable housing, not growing as much, right? So there are still those problems. This means that whatever happens in the middle section of the economy, the luxury play obviously has a lot of room to grow. Right? So that's why you're seeing so much of action in that area. Just a second, folks. So that's what's going on. Speaking of an allied industry, branded hotel rooms in Northeast to double by 2030. Branded hotels doubling by 2030. Over 3,000 new rooms in the pipeline across Assam, Arunachal, Sikkim, Tripura, Nagaland, says a report. Now, this is beautiful. This is very necessary. I love Northeast. Northeast is like perhaps the most beautiful part of India. That's just my bias. But it's beautiful, right? So it's getting a lot of incentives to have an active hospitality play. Now, why do you think this is happening? Why do you think there's so much of stuff happening as far as hospitality in Northeast is considered? Because Northeast is warming up to a lot of new industries. Number one is, of course, manufacturing of semiconductors, right? They started this new facility in Assam. That's going to have a lot of ripple effects, second order effects. Then there's going to be, of course, when such a big manufacturing unit sets up and other manufacturing units get set up, there's a lot of logistics and transportation play. which comes to the fore, right? You have to have a lot of logistics, transportation, right? When that comes, there comes a lot of warehousing. When that comes, there comes a lot of airports, which we talked about yesterday. So if you watched yesterday's Thinkers Frequency, you remember we talked about government trying to sort of push the Udan Yojana, Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, where they were trying to subsidize airlines to run the less remote routes, let's say, right? Where do those routes happen? They happen a lot in Northeast. So Northeast obviously becomes a destination for travel and tourism. And it's not just leisure travel and tourism, it's also going to be industrial travel and tourism, because there's going to be so much of activity happening because of manufacturing. Now, a lot of viewers of Thinkers Frequency also asked that why don't services have so many second order effects as manufacturing, right? Because manufacturing leads to so many things, right? Not services, because services don't have the need for such permanent establishment, right? uh, uh, as a nature of the operation. And also the downstream effects of service industry basically end with the service provider, right? And they basically fizzle out, but downstream effects of manufacturing really trickle down. I gave the example of a toy, right? So if you're making a toy, a small toy, you have to get somebody for packaging, you have to get somebody for shipping of the product, you have to get an electronic component, you have to get a paint guy, you have to get some wood guy, right? You have to get some sort of labeling operation, and so on and so on and so on, right? Service ends with whoever is providing the service, so it doesn't get distributed as much. That's why focus on manufacturing was very important for the country, and that's why Mr. Raghuram Rajan was extremely wrong when he said India should not focus on manufacturing, it should keep focusing on services, because that's where our strength is. That was a stupid statement, right? It was so stupid that you ought to think whether he's conflicted or whether he needs to be investigated. Mr. Sumant Kumar writes, providing viability gap funding. Mr. Kumar, can you drill down on that a little? Providing viability gap funding. I'm not being able to connect the dots. What you said here. Uh, anyway, moving on, folks. So new branded rooms 3,000, Assam 2,000 keys, Arunachal 600, Sikkim 250, Tripura 180. So Nagaland early stage interest, no active pipeline, of course. So a lot of good news coming from Northeast. And the more we go into Northeast, so if you talk about luxury, we talked about Northeast has a lot of culture to export as well, right? It's not just the usual manufacturing, it's not the usual service which they are very very good at. They also have a lot of cultural exports to provide for the country, and I'm so happy that things are finally reaching Northeast, right? I was very happy when they made their first airport in Northeast, like in 2015, 16 was it? Anyway, I was talking about Udan scheme. Oh, yeah. Providing viability gap funding. Sorry, you were right, Mr. Kumar. So that's what the government's trying to do. Viability gap funding. Very well said. Moving on, folks. Price cuts and weak marketing hit sales. It's not weak marketing, folks. The wine guys are saying weak marketing. No, it's not weak marketing. People are hooked to other things, folks. So small finance banks are really clicking it. I'm sorry, one second. Small finance banks are really clicking it, right? A lot of action, and they're now asking for some leeway, or let's say more freedom when it comes to operations. They're looking at doubling the cap on loan size to 50 lakhs. Right now it's 25 lakhs. Small finance banks can lend up to 25 lakhs. Now they're looking at a bunch of reforms to actually help grow the segment. And what they want to do is, one of them is basically approach regulator, make case for participation in co-lending and changes in portfolio. So that's what's happening. Co-lending is a very, very big play it reduces risk, it distributes risks, and so on and so forth. So small finance banks for the win, right? A lot of action happening, a lot of private equity action also happening in small finance banks. If you remember, we've talked a lot about this. Moving on, supply chain e-waste issues can hit critical mineral plan. So India had a critical mineral plan. What India wanted to do was that critical mineral is a lot of problem, right? So how do you solve for these problems? Let's say you have problems with critical mineral supplies. China has blocked it, so on and so forth. What do you do? So one of the ways to deal with the situation is, of course, setting up your own units, finding mines, whole spiel, where they've spent about 7,300 crores. They've marked that for the rare earth magnet supplies and so on and so forth. But what do you do? An ingenious solution was to use uh, the existing end of life batteries and electronic components and electronic materials and extract these critical minerals from there. So you have a very good circular economy playing out, that end of life products, right? People who've discarded electronics, discarded batteries, and so on and so forth. So what you do is you do some R&D and try to extract rare earths, basically critical minerals from there, right? So that was the play. And what the government had done was they were trying to incentivize these people, whoever does this, right? So they say that recyclers say that supply chain issues are problematic. First of all, the SOP has a problem. The beneficiaries have a cap of 50 crores. So right now, they say that some numbers, if you're interested, I'm sure you are. So uh, 50 crore cap per beneficiary will need to be raised for effective implementation. They say it's a scale operation. And if it's a scale operation, if a recycler is doing something at scale, only then it starts making money, right? It doesn't make money at a small scale. And if it starts making money at larger scale, but you have the the scheme capped at a 50 crore incentive, uh, the incentive to scale goes down. If the incentive to scale goes down, it doesn't prove to be such a money making operation, right? So some numbers: the Mines Ministry recently announced 1,500 crore SOPs for recycling of critical minerals, right? According to Ravi Kumar Niladri, CEO of Pegasus, over 90% of black masses, a powder extracted during battery recycling, is currently exported in some way or the other, thus losing all the critical mineral extractions that is currently happening in the country. And because of supply chain and so on and so forth, that's being exported because they get a better rate for whatever extraction they do here. So that particular play has to be incentivized in such a way that those exports could be capped, and those exports could be directed instead in the interior economy, and that could really help everybody, right? So I hope I'm not missing anything. Yeah, recyclers expect the nascent industry to build capacity to meet at least 50% of the country's demand of critical minerals. So 50% of the entire country's demand could be met by the circular economy operation, which is beautiful, right? How beautiful can this be? This is very nice, very nice. Moving on, folks. Bharti Group emerged the biggest wealth creator in Samvat 2081. Uh, Top 10 conglomerates show mixed performance in Samvat. Bajaj Mahindra rising. Bharti the biggest play. So from Diwali to Diwali, right? Biggest wealth creator during the group's combined market value jumped 24.8%, right? Diwali to Diwali, essentially. So that's what's happening. 24.8% is a pretty solid growth rate at Bharti's scale, right? It's one of the biggest conglomerates of the country, and 24.8% is just huge, right? They created a lot of wealth. A lot of people missed out on Bharti's rally, right? The group's market capitalization has climbed a robust 28.9% annually, the highest amongst Indian top 10 conglomerates. So that's pretty huge, right? Then there's Mahindra and everybody else. Bajaj 24%. So if you look at Bharti, the major shock it got was 2016, of course, with the advent of Jio. If you remember, when Jio entered the fray, Bharti was screwed, and Bharti stock really fell off the cliff, right? It was then a question of whether Bharti will survive, and basically everybody else died. So Bharti survived and thrived, and everybody missed out on that rally. A lot of people missed out on that rally. I missed out on that rally, unfortunately, right? But I wasn't a trader then, not a trader now. But yeah, that was so. I've had the fortune of talking to Sunil Bharti sir, Sunil Mittal sir, not related to me, of course, and he's a force, man. He is a force, literal force, right? The things they've been doing uh, since 1980s, it's just legendary, legendary, extraordinary. Moving on, some of Indians are going to crypto for real money betting. Very small percentage of people, which is obviously going to happen. Moving on, by the way, US and India are talking, and it might happen that the tariff situation gets reversed, and we might go from 50% to 15% tariff. There's a possibility. If that happens, folks, we are green. We are so green, right? A lot of things will change. By the way, speaking of US, India's the audit and consultancy business, right, where they were looking at Big Four, Indian Big Four. Right now, Indian big, American, like global Big Four is like EY, KPMG, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, right? They wanted Indian Big Four, and where are those Indian Big Fours gonna come from? They're gonna come from Indian companies coming together, right? So if legal practice gets merged with the CACS and so on and so forth, and that's gonna be audit plus legal plus advisory and so on. So that's what they're doing. This is obviously very important because this industry is $240 billion, right? There's a lot of scope for this industry to also get the global market, as Indian IT has done. Indian IT is a $280 billion play. This is a similar size play, but no Indian player to take on. Move to help capitalize on the $240 billion global auditing and consulting market. So let's see if India can get to that level. Right now, there's a restriction. There's basically number of partners, that kind of play. Less than 1% of accounting firms have more than 10 partners each. So they're basically looking at merging and so on and so forth. A lot of action happening in that play. Moving on. Mr. Piyush Goyal says developing nations must unite on trade issues. This is in response to the green tax which the European Union is laying on India, right? That whatever exports you send, there needs to be some sort of carbon tax and stuff like that. India doesn't like it, of course. So they're saying that, developing companies, economies should unite so that these taxes are not laid on us. Moving on, folks. Regulator to digitally monitor supply of cough syrups. Well, too late, too little. Pieces of shit. Moving on. There is a new research which came out which said COVID vaccines might help cancer tumor fight. So these people are still trying to sell COVID vaccines. They tested people who got shot, and then but that research is obviously flawed. How do you know whether it was not COVID which essentially led to immunity of that sort, right? And was it the shot? Did you test it with a different sample of just COVID natural immunity folks and with the shot folks and so on and so forth? Most of the research is flawed and most of the research is conflicted. So this particular research is no exception. So if you want to look at it, the most widely used COVID-19 vaccines may offer a surprise benefit. People with advanced lung or skin cancers who were taking certain immunotherapy drugs lived substantially longer if they also got a Pfizer or Moderna shot. Come on. This can't be a research, right? This is bullshit. But anyway, it is what it is. It's very easy to find flaws in these research models once you start looking at things very analytically. You find out problems, right? Very obvious problems, which these people maybe knowingly put aside. Moving on, we've talked about AI, social media exodus, and so on and so forth. Social media exodus. Average daily time 2.5 hours. Okay. Mhm. The reasons they've not stated that we've talked about are AI. Interestingly, Infosys promoters are not opting in for the 18,000 crore share buyback, right? They've skipped participation in the share buyback of Infosys. Well, that is a bit weird, right? I mean, whenever a promoter doesn't indulge in share buyback, it signals some, lack of confidence for the outsider. But things are always deeper than they are, right? Maybe they don't have the cash. Maybe they don't want to take on extra debt to raise more stake. Maybe they don't see the upside. If they don't see the upside, the fear is legitimate. But there are other plays as well, right? India Quotient's new Fund 5 backs $129 million for early stage play. Well, I'm talking to India Quotient, so let's see what happens. Moving on, folks. There's a lot of Chinese action happening. Of course, Silicon Valley is scared. There should not be any surprise there. Anthropic and Google in mega cloud deal talks. That's no surprise there as well. Baidu and Postbus in a robo-taxi deal. So tomorrow, next year is going to be the year of robo-taxis. Tesla is going to launch its robo-taxi. Robo-taxi is basically just next level stuff, right? Self-driving cars, a car which can double as a taxi. So when you own a Tesla, right? When it's free, it'll be a taxi. It'll earn money. Then when it come back to you, it'll be your car. So that's what we are looking at in just next year, folks. Just next year. That's what we are looking at in the next year. So that's what's happening. These things, a lot of people ask what happens to the market. Now let's see. Let's say Tesla comes out with a humanoid robot, the Optimus, right? Which is a proper functioning robot, a humanoid play, and the robot taxi. These two products have the highest user interest in the history of any product, right? In the ever like highest user interest in products, it's robotaxi, it's Optimus. They're basically more than iPhone. What if they launch and they get a lot of response and then AI proves to be right, right? In that case, there won't be any crash. You understand? If the next year happens and you see humanoid robot Optimus and robot taxi kicking it and killing it, right? Where does the story of a crash go? It goes back. It doesn't. No crash happens, right? Despite whatever. So Mr. Musk, when he says government is unfixable, if robots and AI don't work, we are toast. What he means is if robots and AI work, we are not toast. So if we are not toast, no crash is gonna happen, folks. Maybe, right? So these are the ifs and buts of things. Whenever people are over indexing on gold or over indexing on equities, these are the risks. Very, very interesting situation. Let's see how it rolls out. Speaking of AI, Meta is firing 600 people in the super AI unit, right? Meta is in a big flux because it has the most to lose, right? Google has a lot to lose, but not as much as Meta. Meta has arms and legs to lose in the AI race. If agents become ubiquitous, the power of social networking goes out of the window because agents will be talking amongst themselves, right? So a lot of action happening in that area. Gaza and Israel are still at war, folks. These are the clouds over our heads. Russia, Ukraine, a lot of action happening. Putin flexes nuke muscle with Trump meet in limbo. So weird stuff going on. And with that, we come to the end of the 150th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's, it's 9:19, 9:20 now. We're going to punch in. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. And I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. I got a beautiful gift from a viewer of Thinkers Frequency, right? I'm gonna write a post on it. And it's so beautiful. So it's a South Indian, uh, a sweet dish, which is just amazing. It looks like paper, but it's actually edible. So it's a rice sheet. It's a very complicated name. Atreya. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm not being able to pronounce it right, but it's beautiful. It's just amazing. And then a very nice showpiece. So let me show you the showpiece that I got from the viewer of Thinkers Frequency. It's so nice. It's this. Look at this, folks. Uh, this is what I got. Can you see it? Oh, 1 second. Let me just see. So this is the piece. This is so earthy. So if you're looking at it, this is a proper jute product, and this is a threading thing, and this is the traditional, uh, you know, bullock cart kind of an opera. It's so pretty. It's so beautiful. That's right at my table. So thank you so much, the special viewer of Thinkers Frequency. It's so nice of you, so lovely. So 150 days. It's lovely. I had a lot of fun. I hope it added a lot of value to you. I definitely learned a lot. I also had a lot of fun. I hope you had fun. So please take care. Help this grow. Please share it on your WhatsApp status, the LinkedIn, whatever you can do. Write, 150 episodes. This is a good occasion for you to write something. So please write, support the endeavor, help it grow, and it'll be beautiful because it needs to grow to be sustainable. With that, see you tomorrow, folks. Take care. Oh no, I'm okay. I'll take care. Bye bye.